after the first book, Joey Pigza Swallowed the Key. It's when I first started getting letters from kids. And I would get two kinds of letters. I would get the letter from the kid that would go, "How did you know I felt that way?" And that would be the whole letter. Like, he was Joey all the way through, with that sort of seismic handwriting, And it would be a kid in the same class going, "We've read Joey Pigza Swallowed the Key. Now we know what that other kid is like on the inside, and we're going to give him another chance." Once that began to take shape and seem like it was a constant factor, then teachers started using the book as a read aloud, because then everybody in the class could begin to associate with that Joey character, and the Joeys themselves could understand the other characters perhaps a little better by understanding themselves. A lot of times what happens is boys really are listening while they're doing other things. So they might be in a classroom, say, with the book on. Let's say the book is on in the classroom live, and the kids are running around from desk to desk, they're multitasking, they're doing many different things, and if the teacher goes, that boy's not listening to that book, and they turn it off and then quiz the boy will give them all the right answers. They are listening to it. So it's almost diversionary. You see an out-of-control boy, but he's really listening in control. He's on task. And so they find that that kind of audiobook causes boys to focus in more, causes them to retain more, and it's a great learning tool. The challenging part is, I can make a little list quickly. One, I don't like the sound of my voice, so I try and avoid it at all times. So when you are in the booth, that's all you hear is one voice that you don't like. And then two, you have to read out loud perfectly on the text. It is draining. It is emotionally draining. It is physically draining. But then once it's done, and then I come out, oh, it's such a wonderful feeling. Yes, it does. It was very difficult to read that book, read any book, without wanting to reach for your own red pencil. So I would say I do about 100 drafts per book. So I'm very tight and tidy. When I finish a book, I really feel as though I've consumed all the junk that's in the book, and now I just have the book itself, and it should be pretty beautiful. But every now and again when you're reading that book, boy, you would like to insert a word or a line, and you're just kind of thinking, how can I do that? But you can't. And sometimes I try to sneak a word in, but they catch it every time on the board. I was in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and I was at the Buchanan School, the same school Joey Pigza goes to. And there was a great kid, front row seat. I was in the classroom talking to the kids, talking to the teacher. I was just telling stories. And this kid was spinning around in his desk, just spinning around. And he was sort of scanning my brain. I would throw out sort of the first half of a sentence, and boom, that kid would snap with the answer right there. And then suddenly his mood just sort of started going south. And then he started getting the teacher's attention, and then he just yelled out, "Teacher, teacher, I forgot to take my meds." She pointed to the door, and he burst out of that room and down the hall. And I think my heart went down the hall with him. He was such a great kid, but I certainly knew what that issue was, that he hadn't taken his ADHD meds, and that was very clear. From that moment forward, I started working on the books and thinking about the books, and then I made a vast mistake. I started writing that book in the third person, and so it was about Joey, and so you had this objective narrator writing about Joey, and what happened is it became a sort of disease du jour book. It was just about ADHD, and it wasn't about the character. And I got I'd say about 90 pages into it, and I read it, and I thought, this is just the opposite of every book I would feel proud of, because it's a subject book. It's not a character book. And so I flipped it into the first person, put it into Joey's voice, and now we can hear Joey's genius, Joey's jokes, Joey's cleverness, Joey's laughter. So the series itself took, let's say, almost 16 years in terms of writing and pacing the books. So we had the introduction of Joey living with his grandmother and with his parents sort of circulating elsewhere. The mother comes back, she sort of pushes the grandmother to one side, and she begins to straighten up. In the meantime, Joey's father is an erratic sort of character. In the second book, the mother thinks, being a good mother, I should give him some time with his father. So she sends him off to the father. And that's where we really take on that theme of you don't need meds. If you were any man at all, you would just pull yourself together and get rid of that stuff, which represents, of course, how a lot of people feel about meds and kids and meds. And then there's the third book where we further the theme of friendship, that Joey lives in such a tight little knot of a family that he doesn't have anyone outside. So it's all about how do you make a friend when you were a kid that is just so wild and so wired, and who's going to love you and why would they ever love you? Because you're an outcast. But he does, he makes that friend, and I love his friend Olivia, the blind girl, and she's just the best. And then they decide, you know what, our whole family is a mess. Let's just change our name and we'll be different people, and that's how we'll progress. And when we look at Joey himself, we say, but what will happen to Joey? And you answer that in this book by saying, Joey is taking care of a little brother. He is helping him, he's providing for him, he's keeping him safe. And if he can take care of a baby, he can take care of himself. As a character of poverty, you see that he is actually a little bit more vulnerable, that there aren't the equalities for him, you know, the medical services and the good housing and the stable mom and dad and extra money for things and money for fun, for instance. And so you can see that Joey is very close to the edge in his behavior all the time, and he's very close to the edge financially all the time. The comedic can really sort of clean the palette of the drama. You know, so when you're reading those thick, blocky paragraphs, don't you just love hitting a little bit of a sketch of good comedy in there before you take on another something? By accident, I was born in Western Pennsylvania. So coal miners, farmers, that sort of crowd was my family crowd. And they're all storytellers. And then there's all the sprinkling of clubs, the Elks Club and the Heckler Gun Club and the Firemen's Club. My mother would say to my father, you know, if you want to go down to the Elks Club, you have to take one kid with you. Take him. And I would go down, and what do? They all talk and tell stories, and everything is grand. And then once you start moving into books and finding a love of books and falling into a book, then you get trapped inside there too. But then you bring that sort of richness of the oral storytelling to how you read on the inside of a book. You bring the voices of the inner ear and the dialogue from listening to your relatives and parents. There are a variety of feelings, of course. And first, I'm very pleased to have written them all and to have thought of them. And creatively, it was really a big challenge. And also creatively, I felt that it was a challenge with great purpose, because I like this character, and I think there are a lot of kids out there that read Joey, see themselves in Joey, other people see themselves of what Joey's made of. And so I think I've added something into the perception of somebody else's heart and mind and being. I'm sure I'll miss him. I'm sure that as I'm sitting at the desk writing another book, and as happens, the random Joey thought comes streaming in, I won't be writing it down anymore. I won't be parking it and saying, oh, that'll be for the 6th Joey book, you know. So I know there's a move afoot by some people who want me to take Olivia, the blind girl, Joey's girlfriend, and pull her out and give her a standalone book. It's worming its way up there somehow. We'll see.